We need to talk about ideas, good ones and bad ones. We need to learn stuff about the world. We need an honest, intelligent, thought-provoking, and entertaining review of what the hell happened on this planet in the last 7 days. We need to sit back and listen to the Iron Fist and the Velvet Glove.
Welcome back, dear listeners. Episode 481, Iron Fist and the Velvet Glove, weekly podcast, which is now fortnightly.
3 weeks out of,
3 weeks. Hey, I was on holidays, I've been busy. We're doing our best. Hey, just a volunteer organisation here, a ragtag bunch of misfits. I think Gilligan Island with a microphone and no ginger, unfortunately. Anyway, I'm Trevor, a.k.a. the Iron Fist, up there in regional Queensland. Scott the Velvet Glove. Scott,
g'day, Trevor. G'day, Joe. G'day, listeners. I hope everyone's doing well.
And Joe the Tech Guy, Reverend Joe.
Evening.
Yes. So if you're still checking out whether we're actually doing these podcasts and you're in the chat room, A, congratulations and thank you for your loyalty. B, if you make a comment, we will endeavour to incorporate it into the show. So James is there and John's there. John missed us. Thank you. And Alex, excellent. Very good. So look, what's on the agenda? We'll talk a little bit about just local Australian stuff with Jacinta Price and, of course, the latest international development of the Charlie Kirk saga, assassinated in the US and the response to that. The internet will be dead, according to an article that Joe found. What really happened at Bondi with the Palestine? Was that you or not, Joe?
No.
Oh,
don't
sorry.
know.
I thought that was from you. Of course, usual Trump Gaza wrap up and a bunch of other things. So we'll see where we go. So, gentlemen, I was in Mission Beach, so that was a nice little holiday. Do you want a few stories?
You were mission in action.
Yes, I was. So, so we were on Mission Beach with some friends, and humour me, dear listener, as I tell a little story. We were in the afternoon. We rented a house, and just in the afternoon, thought, we'll just go for a bit of a dip in the ocean, and because there's no stingers this time of year, thinking it's perfectly safe. And as we're splashing about, my wife, who was not in the water, said, "Hey, I don't know that it's a good idea to be swimming in this water because my father always said never swim on this beach because of crocodiles." And we thought, well, there's no sign about crocodiles. And in this, it'll be fine. Don't be such a worrywart. Of course, nothing happened. We were only in the water for 10 minutes or something. Next morning, go for a walk along the beach. About 200 metres from where we were swimming, tracks leading from the ocean up a creek. Dirty, big crocodile tracks. Like you didn't have to be Steve Irwin to figure out that this was a large crocodile. And needless to say,
call you Stumpy from now
on. Needless to say, we didn't do any more swimming in the ocean. Yeah, but I'm amazed. Like this apparently is a well-known local croc, a significant size. Somebody is going to die at Mission Beach, eaten by a crocodile, I predict, in the next few years.
Only if they sleep on the beach.
Well, or swim in the ocean where there's no sign saying don't swim because of crocodiles. So, anyway.
That's why you've got to be up here voting for Bob Catter because he wants to shoot them all again because he's a lunatic.
Just a big one like that, just relocate it. So catch it and relocate it and put it somewhere else.
No, it's one of those things. I'm just a little bit of an old practical person and all that sort of stuff. And I think to myself, we almost hunted them to extinction once. If we allowed a controlled cull of them and that sort of thing, we could probably bring the population back down under control. But, it's one of those things your views of the world do change when you move up here. And I honestly believe that it's probably time to relax the moratorium on killing them. You know?
Anyway, it's a very highly populated area with a big crocodile.
Yeah,
a
exactly.
recipe for disaster.
Mhm.
They're just
and-
misunderstood. They want to cuddle. They just have short, stumpy arms. And
No, they don't want to
instead.
cuddle. They're horrible creatures. I hate them, and I've never seen one up here actually. You know, and one of the locals, he just laughed at me. He says, "Oh, well, they've seen you."
Yes.
So you know, apparently they're everywhere up here, but I've never seen one. So
there you go. So my other, as I like to do, I like to record and retell my boomer interactions since the last podcast. So this one was at Friday night drinks with the swimming group, and unfortunately, a member of the group has been given a bad cancer diagnosis. He wasn't there, but it was being talked about. And one of the guys said, "Well, you know the cure for cancer." No. What is it? Well, you starve. If you just don't eat, then you starve the cancer cells. And he started quoting some YouTube guy as having the answers, and that's all you have to do, and that's the solution for cancer. Was a massive starvation diet, if you call it, and cured cancer. And I said to him, I must have had a look of skepticism on my face, if you can believe it.
Shocked I am.
And I just said, did you ever just Google for a contrarian view? Did you ever just Google this guy's name and type in, criticism or objections against, or just Google around to
Or
see
even
what
quack.
to just see what the alternative view was of what this guy was saying? He said, "No, I haven't done that." And they can't disprove it anyway. Like he's got the answers, this guy. So I mean, where do you go from there? And
there's no way you can go from there because this guy's clearly just been hoodwinked by it.
Well, remember,
yes.
a bullet is very effective at killing cancer in laboratories.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. And then it's just a few just straight after that conversation, a guy on my right said, "Oh, knew this person who thought that the cure for cancer would be you've got to lower your pH level of your body and get rid of the acidity and make your body alkaline." And he said, if somebody he knew did that and they were dead in 3 months.
Yep.
And then across the corner of the table, like I'd never heard that thesis before, across the corner of the table was another guy who had not heard this conversation about the alkalinity. And he said, in response to what the other guy was saying about starvation, he said, well, the cure for cancer is you've got to reduce your acidity and increase your alkalinity. And I said, this guy beside me just told me about someone who did it and died 3 months later. And these people are swearing by these stories, and there we go. And so it wasn't about
the good news is the boomers are going to take themselves out.
So it wasn't about neoliberalism or anything. But having said all that, it was a very fun conversation. Like if you can just let these things flow over you and just enjoy the moment.
This is why the Liberal Party share of the vote is going down, because these dickheads are killing themselves so quickly.
So it was a fun night. Like I had a great time, but it was just crazy at the same time. So, so those are some of the interactions I had. As you can tell, I don't try and get into the facts and figures and all that. Actually, I did. I thought I couldn't remember the name of the guy who he was talking about as promoting the starvation theory of curing cancer. And I thought, maybe if I go onto YouTube and type in starvation kills cancer, I'll find this guy and I'll be able to then do a bit of research. But warning, dear listener, don't go onto YouTube and type starvation kills cancer. Like the number of
quacks
videos out there on that topic, mind-boggling. I couldn't trace down who I thought was the likeliest.
They didn't bring up the Gerson therapy.
What's that theory?
Dr. Gerson. I think it's coffee enemas and raw vegetables. I don't know. It's another one of these claims to
Crazy.
cure cancer, and then people die, but they died because they weren't taking the therapy seriously enough. They
Right.
slipped up and didn't do whatever.
Right.
It was always blame the victim.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's never the fault of the therapy.
There we go. So yeah, there you go. Just a window into my private life.
And also, you notice with these, there is only one cancer, and it's cancer. There's never all these 75,000 different types of cancer, each of one which needs a different cure.
Well, actually, the guy who talked about the starvation theory started with, well, the problem is that there's been no changes to cancer therapy in the last 30 years. They've just done nothing. Exactly. Joe, you were channeling me. I just said, stop right there. That's complete bullshit.
I have two friends who work in cancer research.
I know. And I was saying,
I mean, okay, the basic thing is chemotherapy. Now, but there are different types of chemotherapy drugs that are released every year. It's just
yes, it's not like it's been static, and massive advances have been.
Survival rates of cancer are 5 times what they were, depending on the cancer. They're incredibly changed from 50 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. See, my mum died 15 or 16 years ago, and if she was diagnosed now, she probably would have lived a hell of a lot longer.
Yeah.
And I think that the cure would have been less brutal than what it was.
Yeah. So there we go. That was my experience there. Hello, Alison's joined us as well. So good to see. So, guys, well, before we get on to international stuff, just in Australian news, Jacinta Price was in the news because she had been in an interview with
Patricia Carvelis.
And they were talking about immigration, and, instigated by Price, it got round to basically Price saying that that the Labor Party is keen and has been keen on bringing in more Indians than other nationalities because they perceive Indians as voting Labor. And this was a Labor tactic to bring in high levels of Indian migration so as to help them down the track with voting. And this didn't go down well with the Indian community. Seen as a racist remark. She, I don't know whether she apologised or not, but anyway.
No, she didn't apologise.
No. And Susan Ley, I think, removed her from whatever position she was.
From the front bench and demoted her back down to the back bench.
Yes. Scott, your thoughts on that whole brouhaha?
I didn't think Susan Ley was left with any choice but to do it. Now, the problem with it now is because Jacinta Price has been demoted to the backbench, she's now completely unbridled. She can say whatever the hell she wants to. And she will just be using her time on the backbench to destabilise Susan Lee's leadership. And I think that you'll see a change in Liberal leadership within the next 12 or 18 months.
Yeah.
They're even talking about by Christmas, which is, 3 months away.
Yeah. Well, there was a news poll came out with Liberal Party at a record low since they've been doing news poll. It's never been this low, their primary vote. So the knives will be out. And, of course, the power brokers in the Liberal Party are convinced that their problem at the last election was that they didn't go hardcore enough on right-wing stuff. And that that your mate, Joe, Peter Dutton, was too soft and didn't go hard enough on the core principles of the Liberal Party. So,
I just determined think that the Liberal Party has forgotten its core principles because they seem to have been overtaken by the religious right.
Yeah,
and they're actually saying the same sort of nonsense that has worked very effectively for the Republicans, but it's not going to work over here.
Yes. John says in the chat room, American Indians, South American Indians, Victorian Indians. Yeah. Yeah. Everyone's familiar, of course, that Christopher Columbus, when he sailed the ocean blue and discovered North America, thought he was actually in India and named the natives Indians, thinking that was where he was. So, yeah, that was how they came about. And I guess that would be the same for the South American Indians as well. Yeah.
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 I actually think he encountered the Caribbean first.
Probably did. Yeah, probably did. Yeah. And Alex says, LNP actively campaign in recent immigrant communities because they almost always vote Conservative.
Yeah, because they come from conservative parts of the world generally.
But they're not going to be, I just don't think they're going to be able to repeat that sort of success because, Jacinta Price has really done the hell of a number on them.
This is where they made a big mistake with the Chinese diaspora. I mean, that's a big community. And their anti-China sentiment, particularly the LNP, isn't doing them any favours in that community.
Well, do you remember the advertising hoarding in the colours of the AEC that says to vote, you have to vote LNP?
Yeah, so they've done dodgy
big
stuff.
Scandal about that.
Yeah. So anyway, that was her and the Liberal Party just sharpening the knives on Susan Lee. Her days are numbered. Why would you want the job, honestly? Why would you want to be in that party? Anyway. Guys, let's move on to Charlie Kirk. Had either of you heard about him before he was assassinated?
Yeah, yes. Because I listened to a hell of a lot of American podcasts, so I had heard his name and that sort of stuff.
I knew the name.
I knew the name. I've never heard what he'd actually said or anything else. He just made a name for himself going out into university campuses and basically sitting under a sign and argue with me. Now, according to the right wingers and all that sort of stuff, they reckon that he was actually trying to improve the level of discourse that was going on, and he actually wanted to have an argument with people. Now, apparently he was very intelligent and he managed to turn a number of people around and got them voting for the Republicans more so than the Democrats. Now, then you look at the numbers, because he was only 31 or something like that when he was shot. If you look at the numbers, the biggest move to the Republicans was between those aged 18 to 35. They were the big movers and that sort of stuff that actually voted for Donald Trump more so than the older people, because the older people wanted to go back to the Democrats. So they do actually...
And this guy was seen as a key player in that demographic.
He was. Yeah. Now, I actually, having listened, I've read a little bit about him since he was murdered, and everything I've read says this guy's just a lunatic. Now,
hang on, Joe's ready to.
I was going to say, no. I read an article that said I sat down with a friend of mine who was shocked that somebody would have shot this nice man, and this person was, what the hell? He was a complete bigot. And so they compared videos of him talking, and apparently in church, he was preaching a good love thy neighbor Christianity, and what a great. And this woman had only seen these clips of Charlie Kirk being totally rational, sane, and this other woman had only seen clips of Charlie Kirk going, if a black guy gets in the plane, I'm really worried that he's got the job and didn't deserve it.
Yes.
Yeah. There are,
so it's a question of, what focus have you seen? Apparently there were two sides to him, and quite possibly those who are standing up for him haven't seen the bigotry. But, the biggest irony was he was quite willing to sacrifice a few people for the Second Amendment.
Yes.
Yeah, including himself.
Yes. If a few casualties took place along the way, it was still important. Yeah. So,
and Julia is saying he was utterly disingenuous. Yeah, he was after gotcha clips. Yes. When he invited people up to debate, he was very much about belittling them in front of everybody else. But
he seemed to be, from my reading, since his death, because I knew nothing about him prior to it, was that he was a particularly unsavoury character in many respects. But boy, oh boy, the reaction. First of all, the key part of this is the president and everybody on the right were very keen to blame the left for the violence. Before any evidence had come out as to who the shooter was, they were really ramping up the idea that this was the left taking the fight up to them, and they'd been too soft on the left and hadn't been prepared to get down and dirty and fight the civil war that is necessary against the left, and that we should no longer be the
called him
kicking
a Nazi
boys.
and had demonized him. That's why he was shot.
Yeah. So they straight away blamed the left for his assassination before any evidence came out about who this guy was. Now, the guy who shot him, who knows at this stage what his reasoning was? He seems to have had very conservative parents. That doesn't necessarily mean he was conservative, but who knows? So we'll see. But it's definitely the case that the right are using this as a case of blaming the left for his death. And this will then embolden them to pass laws and do things against the left because the left killed.
No, I'd
I
actually
can't even remember his name. Kirk.
a follower of Nick Fuentes who was attacking Kirk as a fake right winger.
Yes.
And therefore was possibly shot because he wasn't right wing enough.
Quite possibly. Who knows where all that'll end up? But the truth doesn't really matter, does it?
No, it doesn't.
The discourse will be the left killed him. We need to attack the left, and the right now has a martyr. And Chris Hedges wrote an interesting article about how martyrs are very useful for a cause, and it enables people to do all sorts of really bad things in the name of avenging the martyr. And if the left's prepared to do, murder people, then, the means justify the ends in terms of what we need to do in response.
And of course, all this hand-wringing about political violence, so being violent towards political figures, this was the guy, Charlie Kirk, who said he would applaud the person and he wanted to fundraise for bail funds for the person who attacked Nancy Pelosi's husband with a hammer.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a very nice man, wasn't he?
Yes.
Not. Yeah. So that's sort of a key aspect of it was the right blaming the left and now going to use this as an excuse. You would have thought the guy was Martin Luther King of the right in America, the response. I mean, I know I didn't know him, but I would have known Martin Luther King had he still been alive. Like, he wasn't that important, was he? Like the response?
Well, he was the founder of Turning Point USA.
Yes.
Surely you'd heard of Turning Point.
Well, I'd heard of them, of the idea of outing leftist professors and whatever. I didn't know, I would have assumed there's an organisation behind it, but I didn't know the name of it.
Okay.
I didn't know that he was the creator of it, which he was, which was all about identifying professors and academics who were too left-wing for his liking.
I listened to a podcast this morning that suggested that he managed to use a billionaire's money to get the Turning Point USA started. And then after that, he basically became a professional fundraiser for it. So he would then just contact everyone and he just says, look, you've got to listen to what the left is saying. We've got to attack them. That sort of shit. Anyway.
Yeah. So some of the responses, well, the sort of the flyer for this podcast has an image that Ted Cruz posted and which Donald Trump reposted with the words "indeed," and it's a picture of this guy being hugged by the traditional form of Jesus. The white Jesus, not not the Middle Eastern Jesus. And Ted Cruz basically speaking on behalf of Jesus, well done, my good and faithful servant. Being this Charlie Kirk being hugged and Donald Trump sort of on board with that. There is a lot of he was a strong advocate of Christianity and faith and all that as well. So,
and apparently he also said to women that you've got to submit to your husbands and that sort of stuff.
Yes.
It's the sort of shit that you wouldn't actually put up with in this day and age.
Yeah. So Alex said, I knew about his gun line, but I had no clue what his name was. Yeah. And, of course, on the day, there was a school shooting somewhere that got no mention at all.
Correct.
But, of course...
Because nobody died. There was only some people seriously injured.
Was it in that school shooting?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Here's an interesting paragraph from Caitlin Johnston talking about it. She said... the McDonald's, so in response to this Charlie Kirk, the McDonald's flag at Guantanamo Bay was lowered to half-mast in honour of the GOP swamp creature who was assassinated by a sniper the day before 9/11, which I think we can all agree is the most American thing that has ever happened. She's got a good turn of phrase. McDonald's flag at Guantanamo Bay, lowered to half-mast. Yep.
I thought it was only the Stars and Stripes that were being lowered to half-mast, but apparently not.
Have you seen all the sackings, though, of people who on social media have made gleeful comments?
Yes.
And have since been sacked by their employers because that's just not appropriate?
Yes.
No, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, there's been quite a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, Republican Congressman Clay Higgins wrote that he will use congressional authority and every influence with big tech platforms to mandate immediate ban for life of every host or commentator that belittled the assassination of Charlie Kirk. He further states, I'm also going after their business licenses and permitting. Their businesses will be blacklisted aggressively. They should be kicked from every school and their driver's licenses should be revoked. I'm basically going to cancel with extreme prejudice these evil, sick animals who celebrated Charlie Kirk's assassination. Yeah.
That was just after they decided that trans people were not mentally capable of owning guns.
Yeah, there was all this sort of nonsense that was coming out saying that the assassin was a tranny or something, like a transsexual person.
Yes.
You know, it's all just a load of nonsense.
Yeah. I think there was some stamps on the cartridges and some initials, which they said referred to some sort of transgender issue, but it was really just the manufacturer's initials or something like that.
No, so TRN is a Turkish arms manufacturer that I think has been debunked. There were actually things carved on the side of the bullets, but they weren't anything pro-trans.
Right.
I think there was some comment about being gay.
Yep.
Accusing Charlie Kirk basically of being gay.
Yes.
And there were a couple of other lines, but again, it's difficult to tell what the political views were.
Yeah. So, in an unsavoury character in many respects, like there was a vigil at the University of Queensland, like lighting candles in his honour type thing. Did you hear that?
No.
Guess who was
Are the
behind
fascists that? Oh, I'm sure some Christian group.
Drew Pavlo. Like, you ever heard of him? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, he was behind it. So, honestly, some American commentator assassinated and we need a vigil at the University of Queensland. They're claiming he was like a promoter of free speech and discussion. And that was, some of the...
Yes. They claim that he engaged in reasonable conversations.
Yes. Meanwhile, though, people are now calling for those who might dismiss his life or make fun of him should be cancelled. So the very people who are, which is completely contrary to the so-called free speech thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Donald Trump reposted different comments that people made, one of whom was calling for a crackdown on the media who tell untruths, and that referring to a particular act that they now want to be reinvigorated and called the Charlie Kirk Act, which would basically be all about censoring and punishing news organisations for telling untruths. And, if you take the best light of Charlie Kirk, free speech advocate, let's talk and have conversations, that was completely against what he would have wanted anyway, in theory. So, yeah. Julia says the engravings were supposedly connected to the Groyper movement associated with Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes is another right-wing commentator type. And Alex says, cancel culture. They just telegraph what they're planning on doing. Standard bully tactics, whine about things they're planning on doing, and too unimaginative to actually work out what the left would actually do. So,
talking of the far right, have you seen what's been going on in the UK?
Yeah.
Yes.
Getting out of control.
With St George's crosses being painted everywhere. And then a Unite the Kingdom rally in London at the weekend with 100,000 people.
A lot of
counter protest was 10,000.
Yes. So basically a nationalist,
yes,
anti-immigration march.
Yeah.
No, an anti-brown people march.
Okay, anti-brown people march. Yes.
Because they're fine with immigration as long as it's the right sort of immigration.
The irony, of course, was you see these videos of people who are clearly in that march because they're carrying banners of the St. George Cross. And after the march...
Getting Indian takeaways.
They're getting Indian takeaways. They're at all these ethnic food stalls getting their food.
Yeah. There's an enormous amount of hypocrisy in the UK. It's just that...
in every community, hey?
Yeah, it is. It appears to be worse in the UK than what it is anywhere else. But I just think to myself that there are only possibly two bad election results from becoming the Republic of Gilead themselves.
So the Reform Party, which isn't even a political party, it's a public limited company.
Yeah, that what's his name?
Nigel Farage?
Yeah,
Farage.
Farage.
To rhyme with garage.
Or Farage to rhyme with garage.
Well, yes. That's the way he likes to pronounce it, because he thinks it sounds... He's a man of the people, despite being very, very upper class.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. And then Alison has a link, which is of an interview with an Oxford female student who debated Charlie about her tactics. Anyway, he did a lot of debating. But I don't think he was he wasn't genuinely seeking an exchange of ideas. I think he was...
No, that's what he actually claimed.
Berate people.
That's what he was claiming he was doing. He was claiming that he was reigniting the age-old argument and that sort of stuff, and you had to get a nicer form of discourse, which was all a very laudable thing to do. However, he wasn't using it like that. He was using it as a way of belittling people. And also, and like Joe said, he said, he apparently gets concerned if there's a black pilot on, because did he get the job because he was good at the job, or did he get the job because he was black? That sort of nonsense. That was the sort of shit he actually said.
According to Chris Hedges, Kirk was a cheerleader for the cult of Trump, embodied the hyper-masculinity that is at the core of fascist movements. This was perhaps his primary attraction to youth, especially white men. He claimed there is a war on men. He fetishized guns and sold Trump to his followers as a man's man. And a quote from Kirk was, "There's a lot you can call Donald Trump, no one has ever called him feminine. That is a giant middle finger to all the screeching hall monitors that attacked young men for just existing. He's a giant FU to the feminist establishment that was never challenged before he came down the golden escalator. Most of the media missed this. Young men did not. So I see a bit of, yes, that whole sort of Andrew Tate.
Yeah, there's a hell of a lot of that in there.
Yeah. Oh, God. And yeah, what you said, Joe, he was demeaning towards black people. A quote from him was, if I'm dealing with somebody in customer service who's a moronic black woman, is she there because of affirmative action? End quote. God. What else did he have here? Oh,
Well,
and he was
also, customer service is a dead-end job, and
nobody wants to do it.
yeah, it's low paid and lots of grief. So it's going to be, unfortunately, the people who can't afford to be elsewhere that end up in that job.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a poster child for our emergent Christian fascism. He peddled the great replacement theory, which claims liberals or globalists allow immigrants of colour into the country in order to replace whites.
Well, you remember the origins of that theory was the Jews were deliberately breeding the blacks to replace.
No,
So this is back in the Klan days.
the Klan accused the Jews of encouraging black reproduction.
Basically, yeah.
Right, because that would turn America left, which would assist the Jews. Is it?
Yeah, basically it would replace the whites. The good Christian whites would be replaced by the blacks and the Jews.
Okay. Because I would have thought most of those people seem to be very pro-Israel and pro-Jews because of their Christianity wanting the whole sort of...
this is a rewriting of history.
Right. Okay. That was early days.
Early days, they were anti-Jew. Now they pretend to be pro-Jew.
Okay, because it suits their Christian agenda where the end times are facilitated by the Jews reclaiming that. Yeah. Oh, my God.
God's own real estate transaction and that sort of shit.
Bloody religions.
Correct.
Okay. Enough Charlie Kirk. Anyone got anything else to say about him?
No, other than, he's dead.
Yeah. Careful there, Scott.
I didn't say that I was happy that he was dead or anything else. I just said
he died for what he believed in.
If you're at a
he died for what he believed in, and I do not support what he believed in.
I say it jokingly, just because if you were ever crazy enough to want to re-enter the United States,
no,
you can forget about it having been part of this podcast.
No, I've already said to Brian and everything else. I said the next time we go to North America, we're going to fly via Hong Kong. We're going to land in Vancouver, and we're going to see Canada. Yeah. And then we are not going back to the United States until there has been at least 2 terms of a Democratic president.
Okay. Okay, good.
No, I just think it's going to take at least 2 terms for them to clean up the mess that has been created by this president. And that's assuming that they can actually reverse it. That's assuming that there is another free and fair election in 4 years' time.
The Supreme Court is so screwed at the moment, and they're all there for life.
Yeah. I'm not convinced that we're going to see the United States back to where it once was. I just think that it's going to continue its decline right now. And it probably will be the end of the democratic experiment over there, which will result in a Christian fascist country rising out of it all. And then that's going to lead us to a hell of a lot of problems because, do you really want the Republic of Gilead armed with nukes? That is something that does actually keep me up at night, is the Republic of Gilead being armed with nukes. Because they will use them and without any warning or anything else, they will use them. That
was always the argument against the Iranian regime getting them. was that if you want the end times to come, should you really be holding nuclear weapons?
Well, if we just want to divert briefly about the end of the hegemon,
yes.
since we last spoke, there was the Shanghai Cooperation Organization.
Yeah, that was between India and China and someone else, wasn't it?
Russia, China, Kazakhstan, and a bunch of other stands were the initial members. But as they were meeting, I think this time North Korea had a prominent place. But anyway, Russia and China are bosom buddies these days, Scott and Joe.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those things. I think the Americans have really fucked that whole thing up.
Yeah,
and they push the Chinese closer and closer to the Russians, and they have created a hell of a lot of problem for the Europeans over that.
And they've now pushed India.
And they've now pushed India
Russia
into China's
China
hands,
because it's just tariffs and other stuff.
Exactly. It's an utterly insane thing to do.
Yep. And then we had, at the same time, shortly afterwards, we had the ceremony celebrating the achievement of the Chinese
defeating the Japanese
in the Second World War.
Yeah.
And I tell you, the marching and the parade of weapons seemed to have a profound effect on a lot of people who maybe hadn't been watching what's going on there lately. And a lot of, particularly when you compare it to the parade that Trump had in Washington, a couple of guys in khaki walking down holding a drone in their hand as they just sort of sauntered along without attempting any sort of precision marching. And the Chinese put on a display of a committed, organised parade and march. And you thought to yourself, they're well organised, this group. If they've put half as much organisation into military tactics and making weapons as they have into their marching, there's no way America or anyone else is going to defeat them. Like, it was, I think, a bit of a wake-up call for a lot in the West who looked at that ceremony that it was and thought, shit, this is a superpower when it comes to military, just on the basis of a parade. I think
that China is now a superpower. I don't think there's any argument about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think people were really...
I think it has more warships than America, like double the number of warships than America. It's the largest navy in the world.
Yeah. So, if the US takes them on, they've got no chance. Absolutely no chance.
I'm not prepared to write them off completely.
Scott, every wargaming exercise, if China wanted to take Taiwan, every wargaming exercise says it's over in minutes and that America loses. And it makes sense. You can't actually. If you're going to ship all that stuff across the water,
you'd have to maintain a supply line from the United States to Taiwan, and that would take them a very long time to actually achieve that.
They couldn't. It's impossible.
And they're also going to be targets of the PLA's Air Force and everything else.
It's impossible.
Going to be virtually impossible.
No, not virtually, Scott. Actually impossible.
Yeah, okay.
And that's according to the US themselves.
Yeah,
their own war games.
Let's hope that it never actually comes to that.
Well, of course.
But, watch Manchuria first.
Right. Say again?
Watch Manchuria first.
Well, I know that China wants Manchuria back and that sort of stuff. I'm still not convinced that they actually want to upset the apple cart with Russia over that. Right?
Russia is so distracted at the moment in the Ukraine.
Yeah.
No, Russia and China have reached agreement regarding gas pipelines now.
They've reached a memorandum of understanding. They've agreed that maybe they might possibly in the future.
No, when China and Russia enter memorandums of understanding, 99.9% of the deal is done. Like, they are going to construct the necessary gas pipeline.
China basically said, no agreement's been reached.
No, they didn't.
At the end of that.
No, it's full steam ahead on that. So, anyway, they're as close as ever, and it was another sign of the alternative options in the world, and you could see the global south and much of Asia is swinging in behind China, Russia, BRICS, etc. And
Yeah, I've got no doubt.
The hegemon days are numbered. So that was a little diversion onto that. What did I want to say with that? And just that as part of the ceremony, who from Australia was there?
Dan Andrews and the former foreign minister. What was his name?
Dan Andrews was there.
Yeah, but what was the former foreign minister's name?
Yes, Carr.
Carr, yeah.
Yeah,
Bob
but
Carr.
he wasn't walking in the group.
No.
I don't think. He was over there.
Yeah.
And but yeah, Dan Andrews was there, and of course,
well, it just goes to show that Dan Andrews is a raging communist.
Of course, he was there. It was the celebration of the Chinese victory over
Japan.
Our joint enemy.
Exactly, our joint enemy, and who played a vital role in, in the defeat of the Nazis and the Japanese. Lost a lot of men, and of course, Dan Andrews was. Sky News nearly wet themselves in going to town over Dan Andrews. They can't stand, of course. So they went to town on that. And I mean, people forget that these guys were our allies, the Chinese.
Mm-hmm. And, as were the Russians.
Yeah. And I just want to find if I can see here, there was...
the Soviet Union.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that the Soviet Union won the Second World War, not the eggs.
Yeah.
I've actually heard it. Basically, the Soviet Union supplied all the human meat, the meat grinder, whereas had it not been for the American weapons and the British intelligence, they'd have lost an awful lot more people.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that. But I just think to myself that...
but yes, they did distract the Americans. The Germans.
Yeah, they did distract them for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Because if Hitler hadn't been fixated on the Soviet Union and that sort of stuff, then he would have been able to turn his attention to Britain. And he would have taken them out.
Yeah. So there were a number of commentators who tried to play down China's role. And I just can't find it.
Well, they were fairly busy fighting a civil war at the time.
Yes. But, actually, they put the civil war on hold while they were fighting the Japanese. So
yeah, there was a bit of an argument between who was more responsible for fighting the Japanese. Was it the Kuomintang or was it the communists?
And Sarah Ferguson was interviewing, I think, Bob Carr. And, the point was made about how many Chinese died in fighting the war on our behalf, as our allies. And she tried to say, well, of course, that was not the Communist Party, that was the Kuomintang.
Kuomintang.
Yeah. And it wasn't. It was all Chinese. And it was a real sort of misinformation by her to say that, Chinese communists were not involved in the fight against the Japanese. They absolutely were. It was just an unnecessary, snarky and incorrect statement because she is such a anti-China spruiker. Couldn't just give them credit for what was done in the 1940s. Still, and then it was one of the EU leaders, young female voice, and she was like suggesting that China wasn't on our side in the war, and that they were trying to rewrite history. In fact, the history is they did help us. So good on the Chinese, I say, for holding a parade and just saying to the world, hey guys, remember we were involved in that war as your allies. We were on the same side. Worth remembering. And by the way, have a look at shitload of people and machinery we've got if we ever need to again. I think it's good on them.
It's one of those things. I just hope that it never actually comes to a fisticuffs because both sides will be bruised terribly.
Mm.
You know?
This article, Joe, I thought it had come from you, but I don't know where it came from.
John said it came from him.
Okay. Thank you, John. Sam Altman notes AI and bot traffic now dominates online content, with reports showing bots account for over 50% of internet traffic. And a data firm identified over 1,000 web news outlets that are predominantly operated by automated bots, with many spreading false or misleading information. Reports show bots constitute 51% of traffic, 2024. And really,
I can't believe that of traffic, possibly of comments.
Mm.
Because, the huge majority of traffic is video and the bots are sending text.
Right. Okay. In any event, it is an interesting idea that so much of the internet is now being, so much of the content is
Being created by
AI
machine.
generated.
Oh,
slop
yeah. I mean, you
and
look
propaganda.
at YouTube comments and then there'll be a comment about so-and-so being a great advisor on how to trade crypto. And then there's 50 comments underneath from different users agreeing and going, oh my, I was really impressed with how he helped me. And then someone else going, oh, this is interesting. Please send me the details. And they're all separate bot. Well, it's probably the same bot, but has all these usernames, just flooding the comments with spam.
Yes.
And it's the same, if you try and have conversations online, an awful lot of the replies will be bots pushing a political point of view. And the Internet Research Group, is it? The Russian troll farm that basically aren't there to push a point of view. They're there to push division.
Right.
So they go in and deliberately both sides an argument to try and pump up the rhetoric.
They don't care about either argument, just to boost up division.
And, my Russian friends were saying during COVID, it was the Russian bots who were saying how bad the COVID vaccines were in Russian at the same time as the government was spruiking the COVID vaccine, that Sputnik or whatever it was that they'd invented.
Right.
But it was Russian government-owned bots that were arguing against it.
Because I was so programmed for creating division.
Yeah.
My understanding is the Sputnik vaccine turned out to be quite a good one, didn't it?
I think it worked okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't think it was as good as the mRNAs, but it wasn't useless.
No.
Yeah. Where was I? Actually, I found there's that one on Sarah Ferguson. Let me just see.
As in the princess, Duchess.
No, as in. I'll do that.
The
another.
ABC journalist.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I'll just leave that one. I've moved on from that now. Quick wrap up of Gaza since we've last talked. Well, Israel. So just a few sort of paragraphs from different comments, particularly Caitlin Johnson, since we last spoke. Recent hours have seen too much Israeli depravity to write about, including an assassination strike in Qatar to sabotage peace talks. So when you start looking at the number of sovereign countries that Israel is bombing, they're really racking them up. Qatar's the latest one because Hamas leaders were there for peace talks, but they, they assassinated.
If you're not actually interested in peace, then what you do is you just assassinate those that are there to negotiate peace.
Yep. Mm-hmm. There's another flotilla, much like the Greta Thunberg first boat, but of the number of them. So they've been attacking those boats. I think at least one of those was in Tunisia. So there's another country where they just go in and start bombing people they don't like.
Apparently, Greta Thunberg was on some other flotilla that got set fire. Some drone dropped flammable
Yes.
material on her boat.
Yes. They bombed a Doha residential building. That was the Hamas one. What else did they do here is so they killed 30 journalists in an attack on a press office in Yemen on Wednesday, because the only things the Israelis love more than bombing hospitals is assassinating news reporters. On Thursday, they abducted over 1,000 Palestinians in the West Bank and marched them through the streets. It was in response to an attack on some Israeli soldiers. So did you guys see footage of that in the West Bank?
No.
So you just see them marching these poor people like you could imagine the Nazis did with the Holocaust victims, marching them out of town. There's like 1,000 people in the West Bank. And Benjamin Netanyahu signed off on a major West Bank settlement expansion on Thursday, proclaiming that there will be no Palestinian state. This place belongs to us. And Israeli Finance Minister Smotrich added that the West Bank will soon be annexed, a move the Trump administration has reportedly signed off on. And then since we last talked, there was that double tap strike on a hospital in Gaza, the Nasser hospital, where they basically struck the hospital, waited 10 or 15 minutes, which is about the right time for emergency personnel to get there and start trying to pull bodies out, and then blew it up again in a second strike so as to kill aid workers. And, I've probably missed a bunch of other events, but no country is safe. No body is safe. They are relentlessly, you sort of think, when are they going to run out of bombs? But, of course, America's funding them all, so they won't. It amazes me, their capacity to say fuck you to anybody and everybody and do the most insane things possible. And what do in Australia? We kick out the Iranian ambassador and leave the Israeli ambassador there. So ASIO, since we last met, claimed that Iran was behind some of the terrorist attacks on synagogues and Jewish businesses and things. So ASIO claimed it's Iran as the state actor behind it. But of course, who's ASIO relying on for that information?
Probably from the Mossad.
No doubt Israel. And does that mean now, okay, that we don't really have an anti-Semitism problem in Australia because you're saying, Anthony Albanese, that was the state actor Iran responsible for that, and you've booted the ambassador. So it was a beat up politically by the Iranian group, and that it's not a true problem on the ground with Australians being anti-Semitic. So maybe wind back all of the, we don't need an anti-Semitism envoy anymore, if that's the
Sounds
case.
like a good plan.
None of that, of course. None of that. So the group that is committing the atrocity, far in excess of anything that's been done in Australia, the ambassador's still welcome to stay, even though their prime minister is wanted by the ICC as an international criminal. And our prime minister talks to Netanyahu and tells people, yes, I thanked him for the phone call. What an insane world we live in. That's just a briefest wrap of the continuation of what's gone on in the last 3 weeks over there. relentless evil killing, and government still supports it. And there we go.
You see the new Banksy?
Yes. So that was on a British
Court.
court building,
Yes.
and sort of making out that justice was not being served in some way.
It was a judge attacking a protester with a gavel.
Yes.
And the courts tried to cover it up.
Yes.
And didn't do a very good job of it, and actually kind of made Banksy's point for him.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you see scenes, you just don't see them on mainstream media, of course. You have to go onto Twitter and whatever to see little old grannies and people in wheelchairs supporting Palestinian action and getting hauled into vans and arrested.
Well, as my friends in the UK say, there was, 200 people arrested at a Palestine Action protest. And yet only 25 were arrested at the 100,000 fascists marching through London.
Yes.
And it's one rule for them and one rule for the others. And if you're a right winger, you're fairly safe in being as antisocial as you like.
Yes. It is an Orwellian dystopian world we are in.
Yeah, it's not pretty.
Yeah. If I get anything positive to end up on, typically I don't, and I don't think I do this time.
Hey, summer's almost here.
Yeah, that's true. Summer's nearly here. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've got to get another air conditioner put in my house.
All right. Well, dear listener, we made it back. That's another podcast as we're rattling through things. The holidays are over. I will have time next week. We'll definitely podcast next week. You guys around?
Okay, yeah, around.
Probably.
Very good. If you join us in the chat room, thank you very much. Good on you, all those people. Lots of good comments. Goodbye from us for the moment. See you next week. Bye for now.
And it's a good night from me.
And it's a good night from him.